Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sik-ching, and I'm now studying Bachelor of Education and Bachelor of Science at the University of Hong Kong, and I'm now a Year 4 student. And for today's sharing, I mainly have two objectives that I'd like to achieve. The first one is to share how my experience has helped me becoming a student teacher who is more capable of environmental education than before, and to share some thoughts about possible STEAM activities in the future. And the second objective is to try to link this to the suggested practices for other pre-service biology teachers in the wider community as a whole. First, let me begin with the learning and teaching in environmental education. There are mainly 5 major experiences that I would like to share. The first one is about learning about the nature. And the second one is about taking part in environmental education program. And then the third part will be about working as an intern in an environmental education center. And then the fourth one will be about gaining some insights through observation of the others. And the final one, I would like to share my teaching biology experience with some environmental education elements. And for the first one, learning about the nature, I joined an overseas excursion when I was year 2, in which we learned about nearshore ocean ecology. And then I think that hands-on field experience is quite good for deepening our understanding of the ecosystem and also the biodiversity. And then from the perspective as a student, I mostly remember the time of that I really encounter and also contact the wildlife and also some of the special learning activities. And I would like to refer to the diagram here, which shows the factors for effective implementation of field-based environmental education program. I think the program that I joined is also a kind of a good example of field-based education program, in which there are plenty of opportunities for me to really interact with the wildlife, like conducting some surveys and also having some lectures in the nature. And also, this diagram suggests that it is nice to have more student-centered activities. And for the time of my program, there were really some student-centered activities. Like I was asked to design a scientific experiment, and then different groups worked on different topics. And for my groups, we focused on finding the interactions between a kind of predator, a kind of snail, and then the interaction between the predators and the prey, different kinds of limpets. And then for the limpets being shown here, it is quite interesting that it was stuck on the edge of the rocks, and then when the snail approached it, it slightly turned, and then you can see the hole is slightly turned, and then the snail was pushed along the rock and then fell down. And for the second experience, it was about taking part in some environmental education program. And then for me, I joined a program called Take Action, which was organized by HKU. And then I participated as a group tutor. And then what I need to do was to try to guide the students during the outdoor learning activities. And then the students would propose some ideas about conservation at their schools by their own. And I facilitate the guiding process of how they develop the proposal and really implement at their school. And then for my group of students, they try different tasks, and then one of the simple one was about designing some poster, and then with the topic of save the ocean, and then they post it at their schools. But what I want to emphasize here is that the program was quite successful in changing the students' attitudes. For example, before the program, for the first time that I had a meal with the students, I saw the student using a plastic straw, and then I asked her, oh, maybe you try to use less, and then she said, oh no, the cup was very dirty, that I cannot, it was, that I must need a plastic straw. But at the end of the program, when the students were asked to share about their thoughts, the student said that, oh, she shared a lot of thoughts, and then one of the sentences was saying that, oh, I would now feel a bit ashamed if I use plastic straw. And I think it is a good learning evidence that their attitudes were changed. And when the students are keen in environmental protection, and it is good that when their attitude or their emotions are changed, then their behaviors after the program will also be changed. So their willingness to conserve the nature will not be limited by the 6 months program, but beyond the time of the program. And also another activity of the program was asking the students to first to have a quick check of the biodiversity at the Lemon Island, the intertidal areas, and then followed by a rubbish cleaning up activity. And then as Puli and O'Connor stated, it is quite important for environmental educators to target on both the emotions and also the beliefs of the people being educated. And I think that it is true because when their emotions and beliefs are affected, they will do some corresponding behaviors that match with their emotions for the environment. And let me refer to this diagram again, which it is talking about the factors for effective implementation of environmental education program. And I would like to focus on the follow-up phase. Usually, I guess maybe sometimes we will focus a lot of the field activities phase, the time that there were some field experience for the students to do. But actually afterwards, after the activity were done, actually the follow-up phase should also be important for reinforcing the learning experience of the students. For example, the program asked the students to do a homework that like taking photo of a proof of their pro-environment behaviors. And besides, the program also had a task of asking the students to try to stand into the shoes of different stakeholders and then to conduct a debate on a topic. Should we develop the periphery of country paths for easing housing problems in Hong Kong? And actually, before the program, I thought that being a good environment educator should be responsible for convincing students to love the nature. But after the program, or throughout the program, I've realized that it is not only about convincing students, but actually to provide students lots of rooms for thought, like telling them or letting them to discover, to find out more about the viewpoints of different stakeholders. And then they based on their own experience and also their values, they will develop their own thoughts and then they will have their critical thinkings. As Stevenson stated, that good teachers for environmental education should provide rooms for students' critical thinking. And I think it is the thing that I have missed before, in which I thought that, I should one way to convince them to love the nature, but actually it is not only about that, but to let students to explore different viewpoints and then they will have their own critical thinking. And actually, I'm quite happy that for my group of students participating in the program, they participate in Form 4, but during Form 5, 3 out of 5 of them really work on this topic as their IES liberal studies topic. And it showed that they were interested in, when they were interested in the environment, they would care more about the environmental related issues. And besides, apart from the first 2 experiences, I'd like now to move on my third experience of working as an intern in Lung Fu Shan Environmental Education Center. And I worked as an intern for 2 months during the summer holiday last year. And then one of my major projects was to try to design some materials for school seminars organized by the center. And then, although I did not do it in a very organized way at that time to link it with the criteria of success. But now when I reflect and recall upon this experience, I think it is quite good if during the design stage, we could refer to some criteria of success. For example, let me refer to this diagram again. And then there are different factors for affecting the success, how success the environmental education programs are. Although my task was to design seminars, but materials for seminars, but not for field-based education, but I think there are some similarities that could be learned from this. For example, maybe there should be clear objectives, and also can try to have higher relevance to the curriculum and also the syllabus of the students, so that they feel that the learning materials here is really related to me. I've learned something similar before. Or it is beyond my learning before. And besides, for the internship experience, I also acquired some skills that cannot be learned at schools. Let me show you a photo and to see whether you know what do you observe here. And actually, if we look closer to the photo, at first I thought that there were the pair of 3 birds, but when I look closer, when I count the number of legs, actually there may be 5 birds there. And I think it is a very interesting discovery during my night safari walk with the staff and also the participants. And because the instructor was because the participants were very excited to see something interesting, but the instructor was very serious in asking them to quiet down and to turn off the torch immediately, because if the birds were disturbed during their sleep, and then they might be threatened and might not sleep well during the rest of the time. And also the instructor told me afterwards that if he observed that the participants were very noisy throughout the eco tour, even if he spots something interesting, he might not tell the participants in order not to disturb the organisms. And that instance really impressed me a lot, because at the time of the night tour, my job, my duty was mainly to spot out the organisms, and then the instructor would try to explain more on it to share with the participants. But maybe I should also try to have the least disturbance to the organisms, and this idea was something that I missed out before. And also, there should be a balance strike between the interests of the participants, the safety of the participants, and the disturbance to the organisms. For example, the photo showing here is a kind of snake in which it is toxic, but it's seldom by people. But during our eco tour, the students, we were walking here, and the wall next to us, the snake appeared. And then the participants were quite scared. The students were quite scared, while some were quite excited to spot this. And then maybe they spent too much time using the torch pointing to it. And then the snake was scared that it did not walk along the wall, but it want to come out towards the students. And that was the moment that I feel fortunate that the students were not hurt, and I also feel a bit sorry for the snake because it was scared. So I think it is quite important to have the least disturbance to the organisms while we were conducting environmental education. And also, I think observation is quite important through my experience of working as an intern there. For example, maybe we can see cockroaches. Maybe cockroaches are commonly seen in our daily life, but have you ever seen this? Do you know what is it doing? And actually, while we were working, suddenly one of the participants stopped, and then, I saw the cockroach excreting. And then, but after some time, and we have realized that it was not excreting, but it was giving birth actually. So what I want to mention here is while observe the nature is quite important, and also maybe we can try to observe the participants' feedback so as to adjust the content and also the length of the content that we like to communicate with the participants. Like if they are not interested, then maybe we talk less, but if they are very interested, maybe we'll explore more together with them as well. And all this experience has provoked me some of the thoughts of the possibilities of conducting STEAM workshop. For example, through the birds watching activities, actually it has provoked me my thinking of like maybe trying to have STEAM activities or making birds nests for some very precious birds. And I know that some people have really conducted this, but I think but when I search more information, although it might be a possible topic, I think it might not be very suitable in a school setting if you want the students to test their products, because birds are living organisms that it might not be very feasible and feasible for them to test with the nest that they designed when they are not really the experts or are not cooperating with the experts. And then the second activity was star watching activity, and it provoked my thinking of, oh, what if making a DIY magnifying glass or DIY telescope? And at first I thought about the DIY telescope first, but I searched the information online, and there may be some professional organizations that allow the students to construct the telescope on their own. But I think it has some constraints because it has some fixed prototype for making it. And then I think, oh, what if the magnifying glass which are simpler than and not no need a fixed professional prototype. And then I think that could be one of the possible way. And I know some of my friends shared to me that in their practicum school, the teacher use the mobile phone and also connect with the microscope and then etc. and really DIY something magnifying glass. And also maybe in future you have some more good ideas on STEAM education with incorporation of environmental education elements as well. And then fourth, I would like to talk about my insights gaining through observation of environmental education activities. For example, the diagram showing here is some stages involved in the conservation program of the protecting the horseshoe crab conduct at a secondary school. And then it involves, I want to emphasize on the active learning stage, because for my teaching practicum school, it also joined this program. And then I think the active learning, the stage that students need to feed the juvenile, really increase their knowledge and responsibility. For example, this is the most of the horseshoe crab but the students will think that it is that floating dead body Fauci, but actually it wasn't. And also another misconception was that they think that when the tummy was facing the top, it was dead. 當佢反到佢就死咗啦咁。But actually it wasn't as well. Through the interactions of allowing some engagement of the students, and actually you may discover some misconceptions, and there are more chances for it to clarify the misconceptions. And also, another observation was about leaf bookmark workshop, which could be quite common in secondary schools, and there were different approaches in doing it. Like my teaching practicum school, mainly focused on cultivating students' ability to organize, to hold the workshop by their own. And I joined another leaf workshop at the organized by the EP Society, and then it did not only focus on the leaf bookmark, but also having an eco tour beforehand. For example, the middle of this photo was actually showing a caterpillar of the butterflies. And so I think it is quite good for environmental education elements to incorporate into some common workshops that may be held regularly at schools. And now let me talk about my experience during my teaching practicum. But before that, let me point out that a study found that maybe pre-service teachers have good attitudes and good knowledge towards teaching environment education, but they have relatively less practices that they really did in their daily life. And so, and I have tried this, and this was red envelopes, and then I tried to use this as the exit slips. Then I ask a question at the end of the class, and then distribute the envelope to each of them, and they write down the answers. And the feedback was quite good, that they were quite interested in it, and they were quite happy, saying, "Oh, teacher,派試俾我哋,哈哈哈," like they were quite happy in this one. And also, I've tried to include real plants as one of the checkpoints, like also link it with some past paper questions, so that while it could be exam-oriented, it could also be quite interesting and realistic to the students. Like this is a plant that catch insects, and then I ask them why is it good for it to grow in the soil. Poor soil. And I also try to ask students to plant seeds of mung beans, or also seeds of coins, and then which could be used active learning, like scientific inquiry, or maybe phototropism, or like learning about the terms coleoptiles. And actually, the experience here could be interrelated. For example, maybe I learned about the plants, but they could be, but the 5 processes are not limited by their own. So now let me conclude by having 3 important implications for other biology student teachers in the community. The first one is about having some possible practices for student teachers to enhance the readiness for environmental education, the 5 processes that I've mentioned here. And the second one is to try to conduct more environmentally friendly practices. For example, this is an eye accommodation model on the left cited in the literature, but the right one was made by me using some old materials, like using the paper rolls and also some envelopes, and then to mimic the lens that you see things near objects and also far objects, and the lens will become thicker or less convex. And then the third implications is to try to explore more possibilities to integrate environmental education into biology and also STEAM. And I have special thanks to Dr. Yip and Mr. Lan, and here is the reference list, and this is the end, and thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Yu. Okay, so here comes to the Q&A section. Here's questions. 請問低年級嘅學生有冇機會參與喺個活動裏邊？又或者學校其實應該點樣同低年級嘅學生準備佢哋高年級嘅時候咧，就有關呢啲 STEAM 嘅內容？
其實我諗低年級同高年級嘅學生都有機會參與嘅。咁例如話低年級佢哋可能就會做嘅活動就會可能係簡單啲啦。咁例如話我之前試過一個就係同科學園合作，咁就喺嗰度整其實就係整關於 STEAM 嗰個關於纜車就係用 STEAM 去整纜車，咁就係培養佢哋嗰個創意同埋解難嗰個能力。咁然之後我就覺得即係可能低年級啲嘅學生，即係可能就會係即係可能個程度就會淺啲咯。咁但係去到高年級可能就會多啲空間俾啲學生自由去發揮，咁就即係比可能會少好多去少好多輔導，同埋可能好多時反而係個學生教翻你係點樣做，同埋可能佢哋自己本身好有興趣，再去揾多啲去教翻你咁樣咯。
Okay, thank you. So please give a big hand to Miss Yu. Thank you very much for the sharing. Please be seated.